So we're jumping right into a really powerful analysis from the Macro Butler. It's all about what happens when faith, conflict, and the entire global economy get tangled up together. We're going to explore what happens when wars aren't fought for land, but for something much bigger, for sacred truth, and how that kind of struggle can bring even the biggest empires to their economic knees. Let's get into it.
And this quote right here, it just hits the nail on the head. You see, when earthly power and divine authority become the same thing, the fight isn't about negotiation anymore. It's about who is righteous, who is right. And in that kind of world, all the old rules of geopolitics and economics, they just go right out the window.
So to really get a handle on the economic risk here, we first have to understand what makes a holy war so different from the conflicts we're used to seeing. And trust me, it goes way beyond just military strategy. Take a look at this. This map lays out the core of what a theocracy is. The big thing to notice is that authority flows down from heaven, not up from the people. The laws come from sacred texts, and the rulers are seen as agents of the divine. So in a system like this, compromise isn't just a tough negotiation, it's an act that's measured against eternity. It could literally be an offense against heaven. And this comparison just makes it crystal clear. An earthly war, it's something you can calculate. There are costs, benefits, and eventually an endgame at the negotiating table. But a holy war, that's existential. It's fueled by who you are, by your identity, and it's fought for some eternal truth. That means it burns hotter. It lasts way longer, and you can't just solve it with a treaty. Okay, so that's the theory. But where does this high-stakes idea actually hit the real world? Well, we're going to turn to the one place where this ancient kind of conflict is sitting directly on top of the modern world's economic lifeline, the Middle East. And here it is. You're looking at the great sectarian divide within Islam. You've got Shia-majority Iran on one side and Sunni-majority Saudi Arabia on the other. Their rivalry isn't just some regional squabble. It's a deep ideological struggle happening right over the world's most critical arteries for energy.
And it's not just about oil, not by a long shot. Get a load of this number. The Gulf nations have to import 85% of their food. And all of it, every bit of it, passes through the exact same fragile choke points. That's a level of risk that's, well, it's almost hard to wrap your head around.
The data here is just staggering. 100% of the region's rice and 90% of its cereals are imported. This is way beyond economic dependency. This is survival dependency. Any disruption to those trade routes, whether from a conflict or a blockade, wouldn't just cause an energy crisis. It would threaten the food supply for millions of people. All right, so let's recap. We've got this ancient, intractable fight happening right on top of the world's most critical supply lines for both food and energy. So what happens next? How does a regional spark like that turn into a global economic firestorm?
Let's just follow the dominoes here. A disruption to the flow of energy, sparked by this holy quarrel, causes shipping insurance costs to just explode. Trade routes have to be rerouted, which delays everything. Merchants start hoarding whatever they can get their hands on, and the result? It's inevitable. Freight rates and commodity prices shoot up with what the source calls surprising agility. And let me tell you, that's a polite way of saying they go through the roof.
And look, this isn't just a theory. The data proves it, plain and simple. This chart plots a geopolitical chaos index, that's the blue line, against the price of oil in red. The connection is undeniable. When geopolitical chaos spikes, the price of energy spikes right along with it. It's a direct line from the headlines to your wallet. And that pain doesn't stop at the gas pump. Oh no, this chart connects that same chaos index to what's called the misery index, which is basically a combination of unemployment and inflation. The takeaway here is huge. Geopolitical risk translates directly into economic pain for regular households. This is the classic recipe for stagflation, that toxic cocktail of high inflation and zero growth. So all of this leads to a pretty sobering conclusion. The investment playbook that's worked for the last few decades, it might be dangerously out of date. We are without a doubt entering a totally new era. The source material has this fantastic line that really brings it all home. The greatest danger to empires isn't always some big, dramatic collapse out on the frontier. It's the slow erosion from within, when ordinary commerce, just buying and selling stuff, becomes a weapon in a bigger campaign. As the analysis says, war economies don't announce themselves, they arrive labeled necessity. And that brings us to the single most important idea in this entire explainer. The game is changing.
Fundamentally, it's no longer just about maximizing the return on your capital. In a world full of chaos and eroding trust, the number one goal becomes ensuring the return of your capital. Just getting your money back becomes the new definition of winning. All right, so if survival is the name of the game now, what's the playbook? What do we actually do? Well, the Macro Butler lays out some really clear principles for how to navigate this new world. So here are the key principles. First, long-term government bonds, the traditional safe haven, they're now considered uninvestable. That's a strong word, right? Instead, the focus has to shift to tangible assets, things you can actually touch, over paper promises. That makes physical gold and silver absolutely critical hedges. And above all else, you have to be prepared for a whole lot more volatility.
And here's the proof in the pudding, right here in these charts. On the left, you can see gold's performance against U.S. government bonds, a paper promise. On the right, you see it against cash. What this tells us is that during times of rising chaos and when trust in institutions starts to fade, money always flows toward assets that are real, tangible, and can't just be devalued by a printing press.
And that leaves us with the final critical question. This isn't just some academic exercise. As the world shifts from an era of calculated risk to one of, existential conflict, the old assumptions just don't work anymore. So the real question is, are you ready for it?
Now, for any professional investors out there who need to dig deeper into this, you can contact the Macro Butler directly for their institutional analysis. You can reach out through their website or the email on your screen. In a world where certainties are shifting under our feet, preparation really is everything.